So I earlier asked AI um about the state of the US economy. Right now we're going through possible government shutdown. The last possible government shutdown, I believe, was during the Obama administration, if my memory serves me correctly. But yeah, today I think is the last day of voting for a possible budget to avoid a government shutdown. Okay, so we're gonna take this approach to the good, the bad, the ugly, as far as looking at the economy and also what entities are responsible for this. Who is responsible for this economy? Good, bad, or ugly, right? Whatever is involved. All right, so let's get right into it. So the good, okay. So there's a remarkable strong labor market, okay. The job market has been by many measures the strongest in decades. Low unemployment, the unemployment rate has remained at or below 4% for an extended period, level associated with the full employment economy. All right. So that I don't know if it's correct, but I mean, I think mostly everyone that could work or whatever, mostly people that are out of work, they have jobs available. I'm working right now. There's work out here. There's people working, people making money. Probably most people, making some type of income, right? Also, they say rapid job creation. The economy has been adding hundreds of thousands of jobs per month, consistently beating forecasts. Okay, adding hundreds of thousands of jobs per month. Okay, hmm, interesting. Rising wages. Wages are growing, finally outpacing inflation for many workers, meaning real purchasing power is increasing, especially for lower income earners. Also, number two, robust consumer spending. The US economy is 70% consumer driven, and Americans are still spending excessive excess savings. During the pandemic, government stimulus and reduced spending led to a massive buildup of household savings. While this stockpile is shrinking, it has provided a buffer against inflation. Strong balance sheets, many households took advantage of low interest rates to refinance debt, leaving them in a relatively healthy financial position. Okay. Avoiding Number three, avoiding a widely predictive recession. Despite the Federal Reserve's aggressive interest rate hikes, the fastest in decades, the economy has not slipped into a recession. This has defied predictions of almost every major economist and bank, showcasing remarkable resilience. Number four, innovation and productivity gains. The US remains a global leader in technology and innovation. A- AI boom, massive investment, and breakthroughs in artificial intelligence are poised to boost productivity across numerous sectors in the long run. All right, so they're saying okay, the AI boom has led to a spike in innovation and productivity gains, green energy and manufacturing, legislation like the CHIPS Act and Inflation Reduction Act are driving a boom in domestic manufacturing, particularly for semiconductors and clean energy technologies. Okay, so that's all of the good. Okay, I guess I'll preface all of this now. Definitely like, share, subscribe. Uh, hit the super chat if you're interested in doing so and you're capable of doing so. All right, so that was the good. Okay, that was the good. So we're gonna go with that was the good. Okay, so now we're gonna go with the bad. Okay, because that was the good, and now we're gonna go with the bad. Okay. All right, so we're going into the bad, the good, bad, and the ugly. All right, so the bad, the persistent headwinds. These are the significant challenges that create anxiety for households, businesses, and policy makers. Stubbornly high inflation, while down from its peak, inflation remains above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. The last mile problem. The final push to get inflation down to 2% is proven to be the most difficult as price increases have become entrenched in services like rent and healthcare, eroding purchasing power even through wage growth is now positive. Several years of high inflation have permanently raised the cost of living, making people feel financially behind. Number two, high interest rates and the cost of money. The Fed primary tool to fight inflation is high interest rates, which have painful side effects, crushing for borrowers for mortgages, car loans, and credit card rates are at multi-decade highs. A 30-year fixed mortgage is now over 7%, making home ownership unaffordable for many. Cooling investment. High rates make it more expensive for businesses to borrow for expansion, which can slow down hiring and economic growth over time. Third, housing affordability crisis. This is arguably the single biggest bad factor for everybody, for everyday Americans. The double whammy. High mortgage rates have collided with still high home prices. The combination has pushed the median mortgage payment to a record high, locking an entire generation out of the market. Okay, so those generation, the generation that they're saying that is most likely out of the market is Gen Z. Everybody wants to buy a home. Even Gen Z wants to buy a home, but mostly Gen Z and definitely millennials have pretty much, and even Xers are struggling with the combination. This combination, this double whammy. So you got high mortgage rates and then high housing prices. So even if you said, all right, I got the ability to get a mortgage, you have to deal with high uh prices of housing for existing structures. So a house that's was built in 1970, and it was about 70 grand or 50 grand. That house is 10 times, or yeah, 10 times the amount that it was in 1970. That house is probably $500,000. It could be higher or lower depending on where you are in the United States. So that double whammy is really hurting a lot of younger Americans, as well as Americans in general, because Again, you're dealing with high income, high mortgage rates and high housing costs. So no matter what, no matter if you're trying to get a house cash, which most people are not, most people are trying to qualify for a loan to get a mortgage for a house. They're not paying cash, but even if you were paying cash, it's you're dealing with high costs involved for housing costs. Real estate prices are still high. You're gonna get hit either way, whether you go through a bank or you go pay out of pocket. That is what's going on. That's what's been going on for a while. Again, I've been hearing, and I'm, pretty much closing in. I was definitely, I was listening to Sergeant Willie Pete. He was talking about how the older that like this nation is pretty much ruled by older people. Well, I mean, most countries, that's just how it works. Older people have the experience and they have, most of the seats in politics and everything like that. They have a lot of income because they've been working for so many years and decades. That's just kind of how society works in general, overall, most societies. But America, I definitely will agree, is a what was called a gerontocracy, basically a nation ruled by old people. But it's not just old people, it's old elite, mostly old elite white males. um Old elite white males are the ones that's trying to um hold up this country, and them holding up this country in essence is hurting this country and has been hurting this country for quite some time. And I understand now. I used to think, like, why do these people talking about these people need to die? They need to retire. They need to go sit down some way and play bridge or go, drink coffee and tea and watch CNN. But I have to say that I am more sympathetic to that notion the more I know about this. And I pretty much know quite a bit about this, as far as the older generations, the silent generation and the boomers. Yeah, I think that this pretty much this country could do better with possibly some new blood, okay? Some new people that um are younger, okay? I do think so, okay, for the most part. I think that these older people probably need to go and kind of fall back, but who's going to make them, right? That's the question. No one has yet rose up to make older people sit down. Okay, they're still standing up. They're still telling people what to do and telling, trying to guide this country. And I think a lot of them should retire and fall back. Um, it's like an old sports player that's stinking up the field. It's time to retire, right? You stinking up the field, you're not helping your team win. Go and retire and start coaching or something. Or just, sit down, right? Go fishing, right? So yeah, that is a major, pain in this economy is high mortgage rates, and also in tandem with um high real estate costs. Also, to add insult to injury, rent remains also high. Okay. There's no escape. Okay. Even if you don't have a mortgage, someone has a mortgage and they own some property and they rent it out. they have to transfer those costs onto renters. So while rent growth has slowed, it remains elevated, putting a strain on household budgets. Number four, growing government debt. The national debt, and nobody hardly talks about this, right? Okay. But the national debt is an issue. Okay. The national debt has surpassed $34 trillion, while the US can handle this debt due to the dollar status and as the global reserve currency. Servicing this debt, paying interest on it, is becoming a massive and growing line item in the federal budget, crowding out spending on other priorities. Okay, so that's the bad. So now we're going into the ugly. And then after I talk about the ugly, we're going to talk about who are the culprits. Who are the culprits behind why this is what it is? Okay. So, these are deep-seated long-term problems that threaten the country's economic stability and future prosperity. The economy is K-shaped. We are in a K-shaped economy. The economic recovery has been highly unequal, creating a divergence in fortunes. The top are thriving. Wealthy households who own stocks and homes have seen their net worth soar with rising asset prices. While the bottom struggles, lower income households are disproportionately hurt by inflation as they spend a larger share of their income on essentials like food, rent, and energy. This deepens the economic inequality and social division. So there's a economic term amongst Marxists and communists, and it's a term called "eat the rich." Now, no one has actually, other than you could point out in the in the French Revolution, to a certain degree that might have some relevance in that time frame, but nobody's actually eating the rich. What actually is happening is the reverse. Unfortunately, what is going on is the rich are making records amounts of money. Okay, and I've talked about this, and over the course of years of me having this channel and learning more and more about economics, finance, different politics, different government decisions like dropping Fed rates and austerity measures and things of that nature, and what the side effects of those are. I learned basically how the wealthy remain healthy. I mean, wealthy, and how to actually do it even on a macro level. And I learned really when you get on top financially, it is like very easy to remain on top. And I'm talking about remain on top almost for forever. I mean, like literally, like, because it's a paradigm of thought process. Okay, most people's thought process is of a spender. If I get money and I get success, I'm gonna buy a bunch of stuff and things, right? I'm going to please a lot of people, throw a lot of parties, have a lot of good times, spend a lot of money. Well, the average wealthy person got there over time. That's how they got wealthy in the first place. They maximize their cash flow to increase investments, made money off of investments, made more money over time. They rinsed and repeat. That's how you get wealthy. That's how you build up momentum. Well, when the economy is not doing so well, can actually make you wealthier and richer. Reason being is you can get assets on discount. And one of the things that I learned a long time ago about the difference between poor people and rich people, quote unquote, is that the rich tend to make money off of their assets, right? They have assets that they get income off of. Well, when the economy is kind of unstable or not really robust and thriving and not doing exceptional, well, you can get those assets for dirt cheap. You can basically make more money when you're wealthy or rich in a time like this, or let's say a time like 2008. You can make more money and become more wealthier because things are cheap and you have the money to actually buy them. While everybody was selling their stocks and thinking the sky was going to fall in 2008, the rich start gobbling up stocks. They start gobbling up real estate, dirt cheap, pennies on the dollar real estate, and they got rich. And I learned my lesson that I never forgot to this day is that, during times of economic instability, a person that has money during that time can make more money. They can become extremely rich and wealthy during these times. And that's what's going on now. And that's what's been going on for decades now. And unfortunately, what's actually going on, instead of eating the rich, actually the poor is getting eaten, unfortunately. Reason being is the poor is not able to take care of these costs like food costs, healthcare costs, which they didn't mention. Person has insulin, they got diabetes, they need, I don't know how much insulin costs, but I heard insulin is extremely expensive. They need certain diabetic treatments, might need kidney dialysis. All of these healthcare costs are expensive. Healthcare costs are expensive. The stress on paying for housing costs, rent, mortgages, taxes bring undue stress that also plays into getting hot strokes and heart attacks and other health problems and issues that go with that. What ultimately happens, unfortunately, and I've seen this unfortunately with my own eyes, is that you have the poor starting to die off because they're not able to keep those costs, to pay those costs. I mean, it's like, imagine a robot that's breaking down because it's low on oil and it doesn't have the ability to buy more oil. So it starts to rust out and start to fall apart. That's what's going on, unfortunately, with people on the lower income, uh basically households in America. They're getting basically consumed, basically thrown away because they can't survive in a time where it's hard to survive because the cost of living is so expensive. It gets expensive when the economy is unstable, when the economy is going through turmoil like it's going through right now. Okay. So unfortunately, the rich are getting wealthy and wealthier. Okay. Who's actually getting eaten alive is the poor. Number two, geopolitical wild cards. The global order that's benefited the US for decades is shifting. Okay, America is not the America of old. America is going to be different. America, unfortunately, will never be the America of the 1980s, 1950s, 1940s, 1960s, whatever time that you thought. I'm just, I'm just giving you just my opinion, and also what makes obvious sense. America will never be whatever time that you want it to go back to. It will never be it, because basically there's a power shift in America, and also its allies have shifted the power. It's like, basically, I'll just bring it to terms of like sports, or like, let's just say football or something like that. Well, the team that used to win all of the championships, like I remember New England, the New England Patriots used to win a lot of championships. They used to win championship after championship, under Tom Brady. They used to win quite a few championships, right? New England was like, basically, they were kind of like the Yankees, where they were just winning all of these championships. And then after a while, the team started to get, you know, older. They started to kind of break down, fall apart. Then, Brady retired, went to go play for some other team, came out of retirement. I think he went to go play for the uh the Buccaneers. And I think he even won a championship with the Buccaneers, believe it or not. I think one year, or he got close or something. I think he did win, but nevertheless, like, basically, it comes a time where, basically, teams fall apart. Teams get older, they break up, and then ultimately the coach was let go. Belichick, that helped them, basically coach them to that all those championships. Then ultimately, New England is basically, the Patriots are like a paper tiger. Okay, they're not going to be anywhere near the ability to make it to, basically, they'll be lucky to make it to the playoffs. Okay, it'll be a crapshoot. It won't be a safe bet to bet that the Patriots will even make it to the playoffs, let alone trying to beat win the Super Bowl. Okay, it happens. Shifts happen throughout time. Empires, rise and fall, and uh, as many people have said, including myself, what we're going through in America is that falling, that shift to where America is no longer the America that basically people are scared of, people are, worried about. Basically, all of the other teams join together in opposition of America and their allies, and that has shifted the power of other countries against America. Okay, um, fragmentation of trade, tensions with China, the war in Ukraine, and conflicts in the Middle East are disrupting global supply chains and pushing the world toward competing economic blocks, which is inherently inflationary and less efficient. The dollar status. While still dominant, the use of sanctions and the rise of other economic powers are encouraging some countries to explore alternatives to the US dollar for trade, a long-term threat to American financial power. Number three, a politically dysfunctional government, the inability of Congress to address long-term physical challenges is a major risk. Shutdown threats like we're going through right now, debt ceiling, brinksmanship, these recurrent political dramas create uncertainty, threaten the country's credit rating, and undermine global confidence in U.S. government and U.S. governance. So the reason why there's a debt ceiling in the first place and the government shuts down because it's approaching that debt ceiling, it's that $34 trillion that they have to make interest payments on every year. They're not paying down the debt. They're just trying to struggle to pay the interest rate. The interest rate alone on the debt is like $1 trillion every year, just paying the interest. Well, they also need to borrow more money, so they have to increase the debt ceiling. And just in case you didn't know what the debt ceiling drama was all about, now you know. Okay, I just told you, just educated you. All right. So no long-term solutions. There's a little political will to tackle the structural drivers of the national debt, which is Social Security, Medicare, or to make significant investments in education and infrastructure that require bipartisan compromise. Okay. The left doesn't like the right doesn't like the left. They both, have different odds with one another, but they both um, are struggling for power. Okay. Number four, a looming commercial real estate crisis. This one is kind of a surprise. It'll probably be a surprise for you as well. The shift to remote and hybrid work has hollowed out office buildings in major cities. This threatens the value of trillions of dollars in commercial real estate loans, many of which are held by regional banks. A wave of defaults could trigger a possible new banking crisis. So look out for that, right? Walk around your downtown areas and notice if you notice any buildings that you see rent signs. Do you see a lot of commercial rent signs? Do you see a lot of empty buildings, empty commercial buildings? Okay. That's a sign. Okay. So I asked Chat GPT, okay, actually not Chat GPT, but um I asked basically who are the architects behind this economy. And what popped up was something that I've always knew and I know quite a bit about, and that's the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is basically the Fed. It has a huge responsibility into um recessions, depressions, and economies, both good or bad. The Fed is behind it usually. Okay, the responsibility as the central bank, the Fed is arguably the most powerful single entity. Its initial massive stimulus during the pandemic, cutting rates to zero and buying bonds, is a primary reason the economy recovers so quickly and strongly. Now, its aggressive interest rate hikes are designed to crush inflation without causing mass unemployment. A soft landing they are so far successfully navigating. Okay. So this is the good, like this is the architects of the good. Okay. The federal government, the Congress and president, The $1 trillion in the Physical Stimulus CARES Act, basically CARES is Act American Rescue Plan, passed by Congress and signed by the president during directly fueled the rapid recovery. This cash to individuals and businesses created the excess savings that power consumer spending. Legislation like the CHIPS and Scientific Act and the Inflation Reduction Act are directly responsible for the boom in manufacturing and green energy investment. U.S. consumers and businesses, the remarkable resilience and ultimately due to the financial health and spending of American households and the hiring and investment by businesses, their collective optimism and adaptability have been the engine defying recession forecasts. All right, now we're going into the bad. Okay. It says the bad, the managers of painful trade-offs. Federal Reserve, again, the responsibility, the Fed is directly responsible for high interest rates while necessary to fight inflation. The Fed knowingly chose a policy that would make mortgages, car loans, and business credit expensive. They are the entity taking away the punch bowl, and they're responsible for resulting slowdown in certain sectors, especially housing. So I have to pause on that because I've said it before. There's one initial thing the Fed can do very similar to, just in case you didn't know if you trade, they're in the process of removing the PDT rule or reducing the PDT rule requirements. The current requirements for the PDT rule, which is pattern day trading rule, is $25,000 of liquid capital in your account in order to day trade and not be included in a pattern day trader. So as long as you have $25,000 in your account, you can trade as much as you want, as often as you want. You can get in and out of trades as much as you want, anytime you want. If you don't have the $25,000 for the PDT rule requirements, you will be only limited to 3 pattern day trading trades in 1 week. So one day you trade, let's just say, and this happened to me before many times. It's kind of a misfortune, and it's kind of a pain at the same time. You trade one stock, it trigger your stop loss. Okay. Now you down to 2 trades only. You could do a intraday trade, right? Which basically means you buy a stock one day, you sell it within that same day. All right. Let's say you had to do it twice. Now, in just one day, you've made 2-day trades. You only have one left. So let's say you started trading on Monday. You have to wait for the following Monday for those 2-day trades to expire so you can get another 3. You make another trade, that intraday trade, you'll be triggered as basically a PDT. The pattern day trading rule will go in effect, and you will no longer be able to make trades, or your account will be locked, or whatever the case may be, because in order to bypass that PDT rule, have to have that requirement, which is $25,000. Well, FINRA just recently voted to remove that requirement. We don't know. I don't know what's going to happen from here on out. I've heard that they're going to reduce the requirement to possibly like $2,000, which I can kind of afford that. I definitely can afford $2,000 easier than I can afford $25,000. So I'm kind of somewhat a little stoked about this because I do trade. So one of the things that I think that the government needs to do, primarily Congress, because they started this, they need to update the Dodd-Frank Act. The Dodd-Frank Act is actually making the retail real estate buyer basically homeless, because the fact of the Dodd-Frank Act is you have to have a minimum credit score of 620 or 585, between 585 and 620. And they also look at other things, your debt to income ratio and all of this other stuff. They need to, in my strong opinion, I would go to Congress and speak about this on the House floor or whatever, because this is really making a lot of people lives very, very hard. It's putting a lot of hardship on individuals, and it's also taking money out of banks' pockets, because you have people that could pay for a house, they just don't qualify for a mortgage, so they have to be renting or living with family or something like that. And they need to basically update that act. I think they need to just remove it or update it. You know, maybe lower the credit requirements, and or just update the Dodd-Frank Act entirely, or remove it, because a lot of people might not have good credit, but they make money, they work a job, and they are paying rent. Or even I remember when I was living in a hotel, when I was fixing my house up, you had people living in a hotel paying way more than what the average cost was for rent, because they were trying to find a house. They were trying to get a mortgage and they was having a hard time. So when it says, basically, um just why people are, why this economy is the way it is, why certain sectors are slowing down, like housing. Well, there you go. That's one pain right there. The Dodd-Frank Act is giving a lot of Americans a lot of pain. And just ironically, kind of a side note, kind of hilarious, the people that commissioned the Dodd Frank Act itself, they were actually gay men. So they literally, you got two gay men, older gay men, that ran for Congress and actually won, and basically fucked a lot of Americans, basically creating that act. Okay. They thought it meant well, but it actually made a lot of people, unfortunately, homeless, because they don't qualify for housing. It took a lot of people out of the ability to be able to get a mortgage. All right. So number two, we're on the bad. Okay. As far as who are the people responsible for this and the entities that are responsible for this. Okay. We had the federal government fiscal policy responsibility. While stimulus was good in the short term, many economists argue that excessive government spending overheated the economy and is partially responsible for high inflation we are now experiencing. I have to turn my laptop on and kind of show you. I gotta play this guy called Milton Friedman, and I want you to hear what he says. Give me a moment. I want you to hear what he says about government spending and its effects and its after effects. Give me one moment. Let me turn my laptop on and play this video here because this is very, very educational and important. And to be honest, like I think some of this stuff is fluff. I'll have to admit because the economy is not doing well. You actually have an underclass in America that is actually kind of miserable. Um, that the underclass is actually people doing gig economy work and doing things like paying for Afterpay and Klarna to pay things over time, payday basically buy now and pay later services. So a lot of people have a lot of debt. They're carrying on debt. They're doing gig work and then relying, hoping for parlays to actually have some type of financial benefit. It's pretty miserable. I'd have to say it's pretty miserable out here, you know, as far as the actual economy. Um, you know, it's you know, a lot of people are they don't want to talk about it, but it's not good. It actually is pretty dismal. But we gonna talk about it tonight. All right, so how do I do this here? So I'm going to join this here. So let me see here. All right. Hello, hello, hello. All right. All right. Let me see here. Let me see here. All right, so let me play this here. Let me share this.
That's a much more difficult task. I think I may say, if you'll pardon me for a digression here for a moment, that those fiscal conservatives who keep their eye on balancing the budget and on the debt are making a great mistake. And in fact, that they have been the handmaidens of the big spenders get off and start spending money. This produces a deficit. The fiscal conservatives scratch their head and say, my God, we got to do something about that deficit. So they go to work and raise the taxes to pay for the next laugh. And the so-called fiscal conservatives that turned out to do the dirty work for the big spenders. As I said before, keep your eye on one thing and one thing only, how much government is spending, because that's the true tax. Every budget is balanced. There is no such thing as an unbalanced federal budget. You're paying for it. If you're not paying for it through it in the form of explicit taxes, you're paying for it indirectly in the form of inflation. or in the form of borrowing. The thing you should keep your eye on is what government spends. And the real problem is to hold down government spending as a fraction of our income. And if you do that, you can stop worrying about the debt.
All right, so I'm back. I'm back on my phone. See here. Hopefully you can hear me. Think you can hear me. All right. So yeah, that's Milton Friedman on government debt and government spending. So this is number 3, global events in supply chain, external forces. While not a single entity, the COVID-19 pandemic, which shattered global supply chains and Russia and sparked the Russia's invasion on Ukraine, which spiked energy and food prices, are external actors that pour fuel on the inflationary fire. The Fed and government were reacting to these shocks. All right, so the perpetrators of deep-seated problems, okay, the federal government, political dysfunction. Congress is primarily responsible for the ugly structural issues. The perpetual brinksmanship over the debt ceiling and the threat of government shutdowns create needless uncertainty. The deep political polarization makes it impossible to address long-term problems like entitlement reform, Social Security, Medicare, or the national debt, effectively kicking the can down the road for future crisis. Number 2, Federal Reserve, unintended consequences. Fed's policy of ultra low interest rates for over a decade following the 2008 financial crisis inflated asset prices, stocks, real estate, etc. This directly contributed to the K-shaped recovery and wealth inequality, as those who own assets, like I said earlier, if you got money during an economic instability, in a time of economic instability, and you're already a master investor, or you already know this is a time I buy more investments and I make more money, you're going to do what? Make more money. You're not going to spend or anything like that. You're going to just use that time, that period, to make more money. And that's what's going on now. That's what's been going on for time immemorial, before I was even born. But it definitely, I could tell you a time that it's been going on for sure. It's been going on since 2008. That was like a boom for the wealthy to get richer. And it's still going on now. Okay, so you got almost a 20-year run where the wealth has had, well, the wealthy has had uninterrupted financial gains. I mean, uninterrupted financial gains, just made more and more and more money because of the economic instabilities and the rise of asset ownership going up, buying stocks, buying real estate, those prices going up. It's a never-ending situation in capitalism, and it's one of the things that people that have capital are okay with or might feel guilty about, but people that don't have capital, they absolutely are not a fan of capitalism. Corporate America and structure. Number three, we're in the ugly, the culprits of the ugly. While businesses created jobs, decades of stock buybacks, prioritizing shareholder value above all else, and suppressing wage growth have exacerbated income inequality. Industries with consolidated market power, like healthcare, housing, can keep prices high, contributing to inflationary pressures and the affordability crisis. Global adversaries, number four. China's economic policies and strategic competition, along with the actions by nations like Russia, are directly responsible for geopolitical fragmentation that threatens global trade and economic stability. Their moves are forcing a costly, inefficient reorganization of global supply chain. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave you with a solution about this economy. Okay. I'm just going to, leave some type of solutions. I don't want to just leave this with this, just like this, just letting you know this and not trying to come up with some type of solution. Okay. So I'm gonna try to see if yeah, let me see here. So it's saying basically with debt for the high interest debt, try to consolidate your debt to a lower rate, consolidate it to a personal loan with the low rate. Okay, basically get out of debt. All right, as best you can. As far as food and housing and utility costs, um, reduce subscriptions, try to reduce energy use, cook at home more, use budgeting apps to track where your money goes. This helps you manage the bad of persistent inflation, ensuring your lifestyle does not outpace your earnings. Build an emergency fund of $500 to $1,000 that could prevent you from going into debt when a surprise car repair or medical bill hits. The ultimate goal is 3 to 6 months of expenses. Um, yeah. So I mean, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, yeah, that's pretty much. I mean, that's I ain't trying to gloat or anything, but I definitely have that now. But yeah, I need to grow it, and it needs to have some type of growth because I actually need way more than that for what I'm trying to do. But yeah, this is your personal safety net against economic shocks, job loss, and the ugly K-shaped divergence. All right. So for housing and cars, what to do. If you have a low fixed rate mortgage, think twice before giving it up. If you're looking to buy, be brutally realistic about what you can afford at a 7% rate. For cars, consider buying a reliable used car instead of a new one with a high interest rate. All right, so this is my thing with cars. I'm not even worried about cars. Get you 5 grand, anywhere between 3 to 5 grand. Buy the best car you can afford and ride that shit till the wheels fall off. If you really care, get a car warranty coverage. It's like $100, $200 a month, and it'll cover like most car repairs, like transmissions, engines, timing chains, things like that. All right. That's simple. Don't even worry, but you should not worry about cars. If you're trying to get rich and wealthy, shouldn't worry about cars. Real estate is what you should be concerned about. And as far as like a house, I'll give you I'll give you a formula that'll help you avoid being house poor. If you're able to get a mortgage, I'm gonna give you some this is on my website, brokegeniuses.com as well. There's a formula to help you avoid getting house poor. So I call it the 1.5 rule. Okay, the 1.5 rule is very much this. Okay, the 1.5 rule is very simple. All right, so let's say you have a combined income, whether you by yourself or you got a partner or you got a wife or whatever. Uh, your combined income plus half. So let's say you and your wife, your lady, y'all make $180,000 a year combined income. So roughly speaking, you can add 90,000 more to that. So 180,000 plus 90,000, you could afford a house that's like $270,000. So this is what you do. You go look for a house that's 300, 320, and try to see if you can get them down to $270,000. And that's what you can afford under the 1.5 rule. And what you'll do is, if you do that, I know this is impossible to do if you live in a Northeast corridor, if you live, in California, other parts where the real estate market is extremely high. I know the 1.5 rule is not going to necessarily work for you, but if you are in a place like Chicago, like if you're in the Midwest, the 1.5 rule is still effective. So you basically just take your income and uh half it, plus you take like 1 year's income and then you have the other year. That's your housing affordability. And what that does is it puts you in a situation where most likely you're going to be able to mathematically afford your mortgage. And it also depends on taxes. You got to watch taxes, because taxes can kill this rule as well, because taxes, if you're in a place where taxes is really high, it's going to drive up your monthly mortgage costs. So you got to be careful when it comes to looking at this rule, also looking at taxes. So that's a solution. Those are viable solutions. Also, um, upskill and reskill. Okay, right now I'm in the process of, I'm gonna probably try to navigate into cybersecurity. All right. Try to learn a new skill. Like, I don't care what it is. Learn how to weld, learn how to do HVAC, learn plumbing, electrical work, mechanic work, whatever you can to make some more money, to basically make yourself more valuable so you can make more money. Okay. Learn, IT is still very, very popular. AI is really booming, so people are looking for people that know about how to use AI. So basically reskill and get some more skills, upskill yourself, right? So you could be stronger, can make more money in the labor market. Okay. Another solution is, get informed economically. Understand educate yourself on financial literacy and economics so you can know what's going on, so you can be an informed citizen. Okay. That also helps, right? Um, don't make impulsive financial decisions based off of fear or hype or panic selling investments. Don't stop investments for long term because of short term volatility. Okay. Don't neglect your network. Your professional relationships are a critical asset in a strong job market and a vital safety net in a weak one. Don't succumb to your despair or cynicism. Feeling powerless is the only guaranteed way to be powerless. Taking small, consistent actions, even just on a personal budget, puts you back in control. Final takeaway: the average person is not powerless. Your strategy is a three-leg stool. Defend your finances against these immediate headwinds. Invest in yourself to seize opportunities and build resilience, and advocate for systematic changes needed to build a healthier economy for the long term. So that's what I'm doing. Talk to other people, try to, talk to your congressmen and your senators and your lawmakers and people in office. Okay. So those are the solutions. Hope you are informed more about what's going on. Have a good day, and see you on the next video.